I want to do a video on Johnny Gaudreau. And I want to do a video on Johnny Gaudreau because what we're hearing about Johnny right now, which he's denying, the Flames as a team are denying as well, is along the lines of, so what's his fitness level at? And when you hear about a guy in his fitness level, you start to question his dedication to the team. And I think that's the insidious nature of some of these accusations. It's not just, hey, he doesn't look like he's doing as many squats as the next guy. It doesn't look like he wants to. Maybe the desire to win isn't there. And the only way that Johnny Gaudreau is going to shut this down is one of two things. Either he puts in a great playoff performance and the Flames go far, or he ends up getting moved. Now, there's been talk all year about, maybe the Flames are going to trade him. And I've been vocal about, I really can't see it. And I still can't. I honestly don't think that trading Johnny Gaudreau makes any sense, but let's go through it. He's 5'9", 165 pounds, which is why he wasn't taken in the first round and why there was a lot of talk about, well, is he actually going to play in the NHL? Is he going to be able to stand up to it? He's drafted in 2011, 104th overall. If he was available in this year's draft and had the exact same tools he had in his draft year then, I think he would have been drafted higher because the smaller players still tend to fall. Not as much, though, as they did about a decade ago. Now, again, this isn't the first time that his physical fitness has been questioned. And clearly, he's not happy with it, and he's denying it. And the Flames as a team have denied it as well. It's just they've split the players up into two different practices, and the media is trying to figure out, well, why is he with that practice and not with his line mates? Why are Monahan and Lindholm over here, and he's in this practice? So it all turns into that. Now, he turns 27 on August 13th, so he's still young. He's still in his prime. And again, we can look at the last couple of playoffs and say, well, he probably should have had more points. I would answer with, there are plenty of guys who are currently in the Hall of Fame. There are plenty of guys who've broken through and won Stanley Cups who had subpar playoffs during their careers. Now, and again, that's sometimes that's before you break through and win your Stanley Cup, and sometimes it's after, where a guy will have an absolutely miserable playoffs after winning the Stanley Cup. Now, what he had to say yesterday was, I guess we've been off sports for a while, so when a reporter gets some buzz, they want that they try to run with it. That this is, and I've talked about this before, and this is a media thing now where you want to get the scoop, you want to get it first. And I think sometimes it's a matter of you put that information out there without really, I don't know if this is necessarily not thinking it through or whatever it is, but you're putting this information out there, and much like Steve Simmons in Toronto, you run the risk of being a guy that when the player goes out to talk to the media, he'll look at you and go, I don't want to say anything in front of you. I'm not going to talk to you. And so that's, that's something that happens, and I think it's something that while people say, well, it's their journalistic integrity. Well, journalistic integrity is important, but then you have to ask yourself the risk/reward. If you're going to report that he's out of shape and he's not going to be good to go and it's going to be a problem in the playoffs, what's the risk of reporting that if you don't have 100% confirmation, or even if you do, even if you have good sources close to the team? What's the risk in terms of being able to properly report on the team going forward and on them giving you the information? They may very well say, I'd like to give you the heck with you. So, back to Gaudreau, who gets drafted 104th overall in 2011, makes his debut 2013-2014. He signed a contract April 11th, 2014, which paid him for that season. So it's one of those, we'll burn the first year of this contract, we'll pay you two more, $2.775 million. He plays one game, gets a goal, and Flames fans went nuts. This was going to be the savior of the team, and I think the expectation with Gaudreau has probably been a little bit more than what the player is, if that makes sense. In that I think the expectations on him have always been really, really high. And I don't know if he's going to be that absolute amazing superstar player. He shows glimpses, though. So 2014-2015, 80 games played, 24 goals, 40 assists, 64 points. Rookie year, he's third in Calder voting. They played 11 games in the playoffs that year. He had 4 goals and 5 assists. I don't remember hearing a peep about him having a problem with the playoffs. I don't remember hearing a peep about how, well, maybe he's not going to be the guy. In fact, he was absolutely looking like he was going to be a superstar. And following season, 79 games played, 30 goals, 48 assists, 78 points. And so October 10th of 2016, as they get into the 2016-2017 season, he signs the contract he's currently under. 6 years, $40.5 million, so roughly $6.5 million a year. And he's pretty happy with that, I would think. The Flames seem to be happy with this as well. He's coming out of his second full season in the NHL. He's about a point per game player, and they've got him at about $6.75 million a year. Solid. So his first year into the contract, 72 games, 18 goals, 43 assists, 61 points. That 18 goals stands out. And so again, you look at it and you go, well, he got his contract. Now he's not playing as well. He wins the Lady Byng, which of course is for sportsmanship, and had 2 assists in 4 games in the playoffs. So again, they get swept out in the playoffs. I wouldn't put that on Gaudreau. They were overwhelmed that year. But, again, when you're the face of the franchise and you're on a Canadian hockey team, you're going to be the one that takes a lot of the blame when things don't turn out. So 2017-2018, 82 games, 24 goals, 60 assists, 84 points. And so we can take that 61-point season and kind of toss it aside and say, you know what? This was a subpar season, but he's about a point a game in those other 2 out of 3 seasons. He's a point a game player. That's who he is. That's who he's going to be. And this is why we tend to, I think, I don't know, we expect that consistency where we don't necessarily always see it. And then last year, Johnny Gaudreau takes that next step. 82 games, 36 goals, 63 assists, 99 points. And 1 off of 100 is just awful. Because you're like, man, almost 100 points. He can't say he's a 100-point player because he hasn't reached it. He reached 99. He was 4th in voting for the Hart. He's a superstar. He's arrived. I remember at points last year, Johnny Gaudreau being asked, so how would you compare yourself to Connor McDavid? And him answering with, seriously? No, kind of reaction. And that's how much hype there was around him. And then it all crashes down. 5 games in the playoffs against Colorado Avalanche team that was ready, that had played some important games down the stretch against a Flames team that had been first in the conference. And honestly, they kind of seem to be sleepwalking in that series, and they get knocked out in 5. And Johnny Gaudreau, very public and very vulnerable, because he only had the 1 assist last spring. So at the end of that, you go from a guy who's 4th in Hart voting, a guy who's 99 points, almost 100, tells you he's a superstar. But within a week and a half, the storyline changes from that to what happened to Johnny. So what's the problem with Johnny? And again, this is something that I see very often, and it's in hardcore American cities as well as most Canadian markets, where a guy will be basically as good as his last game, or in the playoffs, you're as good as your last series. So Johnny Gaudreau coming into this season, already some questions regarding, I'm not going to say his level of commitment, but, right? So this is a storyline, 70 games, 18 goals, 40 assists, 58 points. Definitely not the kind of season this year that he would have wanted. He has not had the kind of season that he's going to say was great for him. It is not out of line with the one in 2016-2017. 3 less points in 2 less games. The goals, exactly the same. So I guess the question with Johnny Gaudreau becomes this. Last year he gets the 99 points. I think that's probably a high benchmark. I think that's probably the most points he'll score in his career. But is he a guy that can score 100 points a year? Is it a fitness issue? Is it a determination issue? Because when you're winning Lady Byngs, there's always going to be somebody, and you're getting nominated for Lady Byngs, there's always going to be somebody who says, yeah, well, he doesn't play physical. He's a pretty good sportsman. You know what we'd like? We'd like to see him kind of lose that Lady Byng reputation and maybe be a little more physical. Maybe try a little harder. And so that's the storyline that's going to be there with Johnny Hockey until the Flames win. So I've talked about this before, how there have been Hall of Fame players that at this point in their career, there were questions. There were questions regarding their heart, their determination, and their drive. And their ability to play at that next level. I don't think that Johnny at this point has proven himself, and I don't know that if they beat Winnipeg, that's going to be enough. I think in order for Johnny Hockey to finally put a lot of this talk to rest, I think they have to go to, I would say a conference final would silence a lot of the critics. If they get eliminated in the play-in round, the critics are going to go crazy. Unless he has like 7 points in 5 games. And even then, there might be, well, yeah, he had the 7 points. But when they needed that goal in Game 5, he didn't get it. And again, this is the trick of playing in a Canadian market. Or like I said, certain hardcore hockey markets in the U.S. as well. But I've always wondered if this is part of the reason why hockey players in previous generations might have been like, yeah, I'd rather play in L.A. or rather play in New York than play in Toronto or play in a Calgary or Vancouver. Because the fans can be really passionate, the media can be really passionate, but it can be tough. So I guess the question I have, and this is more for Flames fans than anybody else, I think Johnny Gaudreau is a fantastic player. I think he's still worth the cap hit. He has a modified no-trade clause that goes into effect in 2021-2022, which is when his contract expires. At that point, he has to submit a 5-team list that he will go to if they decide to move him. So the question I have is, if they have a tough time against Winnipeg, if he comes out of this Winnipeg series, if they get swept, if he doesn't have a point, is Johnny then on the clock? Is he then a guy who might get traded? Or is he going to be a Flame for his entire career? Or is the answer somewhere in the middle, where maybe next year he becomes vulnerable to trade? I'd be interested to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And again, for me, I think Johnny Hockey is a good point-of-game player who's got a decent cap hit that's not really hurting the team. And he's only turning 27 on August 13th. So I don't think that he necessarily needs to be moved. But if you ask me, so is he a guy that could lead a team to a Stanley Cup as the main guy? My answer would probably be, what's his supporting cast going to look like? There you go. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.